My parents banned me from talking to anyone outside our family. They called outsiders toxins that would corrupt us. When I told them I could interpret for a deaf woman who witnessed a hit and run, my father gripped my shoulders tightly and said, "We don't meddle in the world's matters." I tore away from him without speaking. That was a year ago. Last week he saw me on the evening news. Growing up, my parents homeschooled me and forbade any contact with non-family members. I thought everyone lived like we did. During grocery trips, we stayed in the car, doors locked, windows sealed. If someone passed by, we had to stare at our knees. Looking at strangers was prohibited. My mother warned that outsiders would taint our souls, and my father reinforced her words with Quranic verses about staying apart from society. My only conversations were with my parents and my sister, Lee. This isolation crippled my ability to function normally. By 16, state-mandated tests were torture. The test administrator's simple questions left me paralyzed, hands trembling, sweat rolling down my face. The only non-family member I saw regularly was our mail carrier, Jonah. He arrived every day at 2 p.m. like clockwork. Jonah was 15 years older, but I daydreamed about a life with him. That's what isolation does to you. One day, he caught me staring, and instead of telling my parents, he just smiled and waved. It felt like nothing to him. I ducked down, terrified, but he acted like it never happened. The next day, he waved again. After a few days, he started making odd hand gestures, not quite waves, something different. At first, I thought he might have a condition, but then it clicked. He'd point at our maple tree, then spread his fingers like branches. He'd nod at his mail van, then move his hands like he was steering. Jonah was teaching me a secret language through the window, and I became consumed by it. This continued for months. He'd linger at our mailbox, showing me new signs. I practiced alone in my room. Lee caught me once, and I taught her too. We'd debate, joke, and share secrets, all without sound. Our parents never suspected because we'd snap into silence the moment we heard their footsteps. They even praised us at dinner for being so quiet. One Tuesday, everything changed. I was practicing signs when a horrific sound shattered the silence, screeching tires, then a sickening thud. I rushed to the window, my mind struggling to process the scene. A small body flew through the air. A boy hit the pavement as a white sedan sped off. Blood spread beneath his head. People screamed, running toward him. I pressed my face against the glass, desperate to see if he was breathing. Then I noticed a woman on the sidewalk, frantically signing and pointing at the escaping car, ignored by the crowd. No one understood her. She kept spelling out letters and numbers, but people just gawked like she was losing it. My body shook as I realized she saw the license plate. She knew who did it, but her words were locked in her hands. The boy wasn't moving. Someone shouted about calling 911. The deaf woman kept signing the same sequence. CF 5281. She knew the plate but couldn't share it. I recognized those signs. Jonah had taught me letters and numbers weeks ago. My parents' rules roared in my head, but the boy was dying. There was no time for fear. I bolted downstairs where Mom was teaching Lee algebra. "There's been a crash," I gasped. "A hit and run. A boy's hurt." Mom stood, her face shifting to panic. "Stay inside, don't go out there." She moved toward the window, and I knew she'd lock us down the moment she saw the crowd. "Mom, please," I begged. "There's a deaf witness. She saw the plate, but no one understands her. I know sign language. I can help." The words spilled out in a frantic rush. "How do you know that?" Her face twisted, confusion, realization, then rage. "Have you been talking to outsiders?" Dad stormed in from his study. "What's going on?" Through the window, we saw paramedics arriving. The boy lay still, too still. The deaf woman was sobbing, her signs growing erratic, desperate. "Your daughter's been secretly learning sign language," Mom snapped. "She wants to talk to strangers." "Please," I shouted. "That boy's dying and she knows who did it. No one else can help her." Dad grabbed my shoulders. "You disobeyed us. You've endangered this family." His fingers pressed hard. "We don't get involved in worldly affairs." I yanked free and ran for the door. Mom screamed, but I didn't stop. I burst outside, the sunlight foreign on my skin. People stared as I ran barefoot across the lawn. The deaf woman saw me and signed faster. I signed back, "I understand you." Her eyes widened. "License plate," she signed. "CF 5281, white Toyota." "Ohio plates." I turned to the nearest adult, my voice strange after years of silence. "CF 5281, white Toyota." "Ohio plates," I told a cop, who grabbed his radio and relayed it while paramedics worked on the boy, Ethan. The deaf woman, Sarah, gripped my hands, signing "thank you" through tears as more police arrived, taking statements. I stood trembling, realizing I'd shattered every rule. Mom dragged me inside, my shoulder aching, and Dad slammed the door as Lee watched, wide-eyed. They yelled for 20 minutes about betrayal and impurity, but I could only see Ethan's blood on the pavement. The next 3 weeks were a haze of punishment. Window privileges revoked, copying religious texts for hours, while news vans camped outside because word spread that a sheltered girl helped crack a hit-and-run. Sarah texted me updates about Ethan, who survived but faced years of therapy for brain damage. His mother was desperate for answers since the police couldn't find the car. Then I noticed our new neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, had cameras facing the street where Ethan was hit. I signed to Lee while packing dishes for our forced move. She understood instantly. 2 days later, Lee clutched her stomach, screaming about appendix pain. Mom paled. Our medical knowledge came from old books. Dad reluctantly took her to the ER after she writhed on the floor. As their car sped off, I knew Lee was faking. I called Sarah, telling her about the cameras. She arrived in 15 minutes with Ethan's uncle, Nathan, an IT specialist. We crept to Mrs. Callahan's house. Nathan hacked her Wi-Fi, pulling up weeks of footage. My stomach sank as we saw Jonah's mail van 3 weeks before, with Mrs. Callahan yelling at him. Then the accident day, 1:47 p.m. Mrs. Callahan in her white Toyota, drinking wine, filming herself laughing. Nathan saved the footage as Sarah watched, confirming she'd been drunk 13 minutes before hitting Ethan. We heard a car. I sprinted home as my parents returned. Lee gave me a subtle thumbs up while Mom ranted about useless doctors. That night, Nathan sent files showing 2 other kids hit by white Toyotas in 3 years, cases buried after a sergeant took over. The next morning, black SUVs surrounded our house. Federal agents had warrants. They sat us in the living room, explaining the sergeant had covered for his wife's drunk driving for years. Ethan wasn't her first victim. I wondered why Jonah created this sign language system. Was he always planning to teach someone? My hands trembled, realizing we'd uncovered something massive. Sarah walked in with Jonah, who signed and spoke, saying I'd saved his job and gotten justice for Ethan. My parents sat rigid, refusing to look. Agents said Lee and I would testify before a grand jury. A woman entered, crying, Ethan's mother, Karen. She hugged me, thanking me for speaking up. It was my first hug from an outsider, and I froze. Dad stood, declaring we were leaving, but agents showed papers. Lee and I were under federal protection until the trial, and CPS was investigating our isolation. Days later, we were in Sarah's kitchen, learning to use phones. Everyday tasks like ordering food felt impossible. Lee adapted fast, playing with neighborhood kids while I watched from the window, scared to step out. Nights were sleepless in a room without locks. Freedom felt wrong. Sarah taught me small talk, but my mind kept stalling. At the grand jury, I testified for hours about the signs and footage. My voice grew steady. Lee spoke about our isolation. The jury indicted the sergeant and his wife for manslaughter and obstruction. The next day, police arrested Mrs. Callahan as she screamed about those lying kids. The sergeant was cuffed at his desk, his colleagues silent. Lee joined her school's debate team, winning her first tournament. Our parents sat in jail, awaiting their own trials. At a supervised visit, Dad admitted he'd let fear rule us, influenced by Mom's paranoia. Mom refused to see us, insisting she was right. The prosecutor said our parents faced child abuse charges. Sarah helped me study for my GED, calling me brilliant despite my upbringing. I passed with college-worthy scores. Karen invited me to Ethan's grave. She shared he'd been learning sign language for his deaf cousin. The coincidence floored me. At the trial, I testified confidently despite the defense calling me a manipulated child. Jonah spoke about teaching me signs and Mrs. Callahan's threats. Footage showed her drinking before the crash, and emails revealed her husband's cover-up. Other witnesses shared ignored reports about Mrs. Callahan's driving. The prosecutor called me a hero who exposed corruption. The jury convicted her for 25 years and the sergeant for 20. Outside, reporters swarmed. I spoke clearly. A child died because adults failed. I told the truth. CPS placed us with Sarah permanently. I got a full scholarship to the University of Michigan for social work. At a supervised visit, Mom admitted her fear hurt us. Dad was in therapy, unraveling his control. I found Jonah on his route and thanked him. "You saved yourself," he said, hugging me briefly. Lee won a debate tournament, arguing about isolation versus welfare as our parents watched, conflicted. College was overwhelming, but I made friends. Therapy helped us confront our parents' abuse. I started teaching sign language at Sarah's Advocacy Center, helping kids like me. At Ethan's Memorial Garden dedication, his classmates sang, and Karen thanked us. Dad got a job at a hardware store, and Mom attended trauma support groups. Sarah's Sunday dinners became our new normal, with her daughter Emma joining our silent conversations. A letter from a girl in Texas said my story gave her hope. I connected her to resources. At Michigan's campus, holding my dorm key, I felt like Maya, not the girl behind the window, but someone enough. I didn't look back.